In this video, we're going to be covering a little bit more of amino acids and then talking about protein structures. So some of the most important amino acids that you're going to be tested on in Part 1 boards are phenylalanine, tyrosine, and tryptophan. This is because these three specific amino acids are the precursors to a large number of other chemicals that are highly used throughout the body and are very, very important. So phenylalanine, we remember that is one of our ring structures, one of our aromatic rings. We remember our mnemonic for that. Your pal Tyrone trips you in the ring. In fact, all three of these, the phenylalanine, tyrosine, and tryptophan, these are our big important ones. Those are all of our aromatic rings. So phenylalanine, when we break it down, we are actually able to produce tyrosine. And that is thanks to this specific enzyme known as phenylalanine hydroxylase. If we do not have this specific enzyme, we get a condition called phenylketonuria, or PKU. This is a condition, if we break this down, the phenyl, this is our phenylalanine. When we look at urea, we're always talking about urine. So we have phenylalanine found in excessive amounts in the urine because it gets digested in the digestive tract, it gets absorbed into the bloodstream, and then there's nowhere for it to go because it can't be broken down and used, so it gets excreted through the urine. This is a condition in which, actually we will see this again in the clinical pathology portion of this review, but phenylketonuria is actually identified by when you take the patient's urine and it is exposed to sunlight or some type of bright light, the urine actually turns a very, very dark color. The treatment for this condition, or I should say the treatment plan for this specific type of condition, is actually just to avoid all of the foods high in phenylalanine. Okay. Additionally, with this type of condition, being unable to convert phenylalanine to tyrosine, you also get albinism, which you can get an individual who is an albino. So the very, very pale skin, you can have purpley to reddish colored eyes as well. So phenylalanine can be turned into tyrosine. Now, tyrosine can become a whole host of things. The first step is tyrosine gets converted to L-DOPA. L-DOPA can then go into two different directions. We see this little chart down here that I've produced. L-DOPA can either become melanin or it can become dopamine. Now, melanin is our skin pigmentation chemical. So our body produces melanin. The more melanin that our body produces, the darker our skin complexion. So again, if we are unable to produce melanin because we can't produce the tyrosine, we get albinism. On the other side of things, L-DOPA also can be converted into dopamine. Melanin is converted in the skin. Dopamine, that whole process happens within the brain. So dopamine can then be converted into norepinephrine, and then norepinephrine into epinephrine. These three chemicals, dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine, they are called catecholamines. You will see that word fairly often as we discuss all of these things. We're going to talk about this more later on, but dopamine, specifically the conversion of L-DOPA to dopamine, this is a process that is interfered with in a condition known as Parkinson's. With Parkinson's disease, we get this buildup of Lewy bodies, and specifically there are issues within the substantia nigra, within the caudate nucleus of the brain. We're going to look at the specific details of that in future videos, so don't worry too much about that right now. But L-tyrosine to L-dopa, L-dopa either to melanin or dopamine, and then to norepinephrine and epinephrine. The way that they like to test on these specific questions is they ask you, what is the precursor of all of these things? So they'll say, what is the precursor of epinephrine? And that could, any of these answer choices, it could be norepinephrine, it could be dopamine, it could be L-dopa, it could be tyrosine, it could be phenylalanine. Any of those answer choices are acceptable. So this is when you look at the specific wording of the question. They could ask you, what is the amino acid origin of epinephrine? If they specifically mention the amino acid, we're looking for tyrosine or potentially phenylalanine. Tyrosine is the best choice. Phenylalanine might be a good second choice. If we're asking what is the immediate precursor we want to see of epinephrine, that would be norepinephrine, because that's immediately before. So board questions will often, they like to try to confuse you a little bit. So if you go to look at your answer choices and you see two answers that are potentially correct, go back and reread the question and ensure that you're understanding it properly. Additionally, our amino acid tyrosine is also used for our thyroid hormone. T3, our triiodothyronine, and our T4 thyroxine. We're going to talk a lot about thyroid hormone, as it is a condition that hyper and hypothyroidism is heavily tested on part 1, as well as most other board exams as well. Again, histidine can be converted to histamine, which is part of our allergic reaction, part of our immune response. Remember, histidine is essential in children only. Finally, tryptophan. Tryptophan is converted to serotonin and then melatonin. Serotonin being one of our happy chemicals in the brain, melatonin helping to regulate our awake and night cycles. Tryptophan can also be converted into niacin and nicotinamide, which is one of our important B vitamins. Very, very important. One of the questions that they're going to try to check you up on is mentioning melanin versus melatonin. Remembering that tyrosine is converted to melanin, tryptophan is converted to melatonin. Now, just a couple of extras. Roughly for every kilogram of body weight, you need 0.8 grams of protein. That is the recommended amount. Every 10 kilograms, you need 8 grams. Every 100, you need 80 grams, and so on. Occasionally, this is asked on boards. Isoelectric point. This is often asked as just a definition type question, so this will be in our flashcards. This is when the pH, this is the pH of a solution, when an amino acid has no net electrical charge when it is neutral. Also known as a Zwitter ion, this is an AKA for this. This is an amino acid at its isoelectric point. This is a lot of just straight definition type stuff that they might throw at you as or if you've seen it, it's a kind of a gimme question. Additionally, they might talk to you about this specific chemical called glutathione. This is a tripeptide made up of glycine, glutamate, and cysteine. Each of these are produced by the liver, and glutathione is also produced in the liver. Selenium is connected to glutathione. This mineral is used for the glutathione peroxidase enzyme. Okay, this is just some extra stuff. Occasionally you see it on the exams. Most of the time, the way that we want to remember this, glutathione is connected to the liver. Selenium is connected to glutathione. Additionally, insulin. We'll talk a decent amount about insulin and glucagon. Insulin is made up of 2 polypeptide chains that are linked by a disulfide bond. So whenever we talk about a disulfide bond, or we talk about cysteine, methionine, cysteine, those guys, we try and link those together with insulin. Our sulfur-containing amino acids are connected to insulin. We also have some different compound classifications that you will see. Polypeptide hormones. Poly meaning multiple, peptide meaning that they are made up of peptide bonds, so they're made up of amino acids. Hormones are part of the endocrine system. Hormones are designed to they travel through the blood to different target organs. Insulin and glucagon are the most commonly asked. Catecholamines, we mentioned this, epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine. And then steroids, these are our most common steroids: testosterone, cortisol, estrogen, and progesterone. Okay, so that covers. So one of the questions that we'll see, like, which of the following is a polypeptide hormone, or which of the following is a catecholamine, which of the following is a steroid. That's the kind of questions that can come from this chunk. This covers the amino acid derivatives as well as some of those extras. And in the next video, we will look at the protein structures.